Until he checks beneath the hood, the man who inherited the ancient automobile was furious. He intended to grow up to be a man just like his father, who had meant the world to him. Everything had changed suddenly following his father's death, which was not surprising. Welcome to USA Stories channel. Do not forget to subscribe and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. Now let's go to the story. His brothers tried everything to keep him out of their father's multi-million-dollar riches and expelled him from the house. His late father had planned something his son would never have imagined, but all he was able to get was a dilapidated automobile that was collecting dust in the garage. Tommy's heart broke at learning about his father. As the weeks passed, he discovered that despite his efforts to lessen the suffering he was experiencing, nothing would change. He was left living in a fog. He had a great relationship and gained a lot of knowledge from his father. His father served as both his greatest friend and his source of support in everything. Tommy's world flipped upside down the moment he answered the phone that day, despite his son's insistence that he would never leave his side. When we are kids, we never consider the possibility of not having our parents one day, and even when we come to terms with it as adults, it still scares us. It seemed like Tommy Hawthorne had lost more than just his father. Even though he was already depressed, the fallout would make him cry even more, and he would question how his father could have hurt him in the first place. Tommy's father was a rich author who nurtured Tommy and his brothers. Their father raised kids by himself when they were growing up in London without a mother. He tried his hardest to meet their needs and provide them all of their desires. Though his father had never spoken to him directly, there was a reason why he had always maintained a special place in his heart for Tommy, his last child. Tommy was his father's favorite because his mother had died while he was still being born. He used to tell Tommy that Tommy was his mother's final present to him before she passed away. Tommy's siblings saw their father lavishing love and devotion on him, and they weren't always grateful for it. But Tommy didn't understand why, when his father passed away, he had given him a piece of metal that was meant to create an automobile. When they got their childhood house and a ton of money, how had he ended up with that? Tommy was the only one of his brothers to graduate from high school and attend college. When his brothers decided to pursue a life of spectacles and celebrations, he knew he was different. Considering that their father had the resources to provide for all of their needs and desires, they were never without. They relished a life filled with attractive ladies and fancy automobiles, but it wouldn't last forever. Tommy was pursuing his creative writing studies. The next year, he was about to complete his master's degree when his father passed suddenly. After hearing the news, he was paralyzed and struggled for weeks to get better. Having buried his father, he was still in disbelief. When he sat with his brothers in front of the family attorney to talk about his father's will, that's when he could finally stop distancing himself. Though he never imagined his father would leave him all but penniless, he assumed that his father had given him the house and enough cash to pay for his school. Tommy overheard the attorney stating that his father had given his brothers the home and the majority of his wealth, but he had given Tommy a beat-up automobile that was allowed to collect dust in the garage. The vehicle was a Shelby Cobra that had been kept in the garage for many years. When the lads did eventually see it, they realized that it was a shell of a car with rust where the paint had chipped. They were all perplexed as to why their father would abandon Tommy in this manner. Tommy was in complete shock and disbelief. Why would his father abandon him like this? He had worked hard to become an author like his father, spending years trying to make him proud. Tommy questioned whether he had overestimated his bond and friendship with his father. His brothers could have known something that he was unaware of, and he wanted to know. After the lawyers' meeting ended, Tommy made the decision to go home with his brother. In the hopes that they might be willing to assist with his study expenses, he wished to speak with them. Given that he now had additional issues to resolve in light of his father's passing, it would be beneficial. However, he had just entered the home after his brothers and observed that they were behaving strangely toward him. He dismissed it, not realizing that he would soon discover their actual nature. Tommy's siblings instructed him to stand as he attempted to take a seat in the living room where his favorite chair resides. They'd been saying for a long time how much they disliked him. They threw him out, called a tow truck to assist him remove his trash from their garage. now that the home was in their name and they owned 99% of their father's money. If Tommy had been devastated to hear of his father's death, he was now incensed. He observed as a succession of young, gorgeous men and women went up the driveway from the comfort of the exterior of his boyhood house. Even though his father's grave's earth was still wet, his brothers were planning a celebration. Tommy regretted the choice he made instantly and ran back in to chastise them. From the top of the stairs, one of his brothers noticed him and yelled at him to get out of their house. Hearing the disturbance, the other brother who was entertaining the visitors saw it. Taking out a hunting rifle, he practiced on Tommy before requesting that he go. With a stutter, he continued, "Dad's no longer here to play favorites," stumbling about while trying to hold the gun on Tommy. "Get out!" Tommy turned around and left the home. He was the target of everyone's jokes. He strolled inside the garage, dejected and alone, to see what his old grandpa had left him. When his siblings phoned for a tow truck, they discovered him at the garage door, unable to even open the door. His shock upon realizing his father was indeed dead had turned back into grief. It would all become true when you stepped into the garage and saw the automobile. Tommy was unprepared for everything. He did not cry or sob, he just let the tears fall. He would welcome this with open arms if that were what his father wanted for him. When the tow truck arrived, it removed the abandoned vehicle. Because everything was done on the fly, Tommy had to hire a garage while he was out and about. He had to discover what made this ancient piece of rubbish so special. The vehicle was towed by the tow truck to Tommy's rented garage. Once inside, the driver assisted him and drove off. Tommy sat in the driver's seat, hands on the steering wheel, all by himself once more. Again, loss clouded his heart and intellect, causing his eyes to blur with tears. It seemed unbelievable to him that his brothers had twice thrown him out of their home. He hoped that the agony would end soon as he grieved for his father. That's when he noticed something in the glove compartment. The sheet was a piece of white paper. It looked ancient, the ends of the envelope dog-eared. Tommy unlocked the glove compartment out of curiosity and took it out. He had had a rough day, so he was grateful for any diversion that would help him forget his discomfort. He tore the letter open and wiped away his tears before starting to read. The letter's date suggested that it was written a few years ago. His father had also written it. It revealed how much Tommy's father loved him and his brothers, but it also expressed the elder man's concerns about Tommy's brothers' prospects due to their risky upbringing. However, there was more. There were certain words at the conclusion of the letter that would make Tommy bow his head. Tommy's father had given him $60,000 sealed in the car's trunk, according to the last paragraph of the letter. Along with the money, he left Tommy some ideas and requested that Tommy start a project of his own. "Adjust this lovely one," the letter said. "In London, there's a private auction. When you're done, take it there and give this number a call." Tommy read and rubbed his head. His father asked him to take a practically totaled automobile to London and fix it up. Taking a deep breath, he decided it was possible since he was done with the field work required by his school. In addition, he wanted something to divert his attention from his situation. Maybe he needed this project after all. Tommy made sure everything was in order before leaving for school. He skipped the remaining courses so he could devote all of his attention to mending the automobile, and he set to work. Hiring professionals who were familiar with handling such a vintage model was the first thing he did. In order to keep the automobile for a few more months, he also paid the garage. He prayed he would fulfill his father's final request. Tommy's brothers used to come to his hotel room and tease him, but he never yelled them out. Instead, he would just greet them with a cup of coffee and go back to work. The weeks quickly passed. In addition, he had split the $60,000 his father had left him between school tuition, auto repairs, and the money he would need for transportation to get the car to London. But he had no idea how long any of this would take to complete. Tommy continued to fix the automobile for 2 years. His brothers had sold their childhood home and fled the nation to pursue their own dreams of adventure. Tommy had, of course, attempted to talk them out of the project, but they had summoned security and had him vacate the property. However, he was currently finishing the automobile. Tommy understood what his father had been thinking just by taking one glance at the Shelby. Tommy's once-old abandoned vehicle had been restored into a stunning vehicle that attracted attention wherever it went. After a further month of making sure the automobile was in excellent operating order and that every component was functioning, please remember to subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our videos. If you enjoyed the tale, the next video that plays on your screen will probably move you too.